thoughts on China's diplomatic push in influencing this conflict and its role in other key world events. We're joined now by Marina Zhang, an associate professor with the University of Technology, Sydney. Well, thanks for joining us, Professor. Just before we get to the other issues about China wanting a bigger presence on a global stage, I just want to get your reaction to Nauru and basically what are the geopolitical implications of Nauru now having severed ties with Taiwan and recognizing China instead, particularly in the context of Taiwan's diminishing number of formal allies?
Well, this is a very complex issue, but I think timing is everything. And the reality is the announcement was made just within 24 hours of the Taiwan election result. That carries some specific and maybe more profound messages. And the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs obviously welcomed this announcement. And despite the size of Nauru, it's a very small Pacific island country, it probably will have some type of spillover effect over other countries. So it's too early to speculate what the real impact will be on the cross-strait relationships and also geopolitical influence.
Yeah, well, China's response to Taiwan's elections and the US, sending these former senior officials has been fairly muted. Do you align with the perspectives of some analysts who argue that Beijing might in fact need to rely on the US at some point, not just to stabilize its fragile relations, but also maybe to even influence any potential moves by the island towards independence if that's where they're going? Well,
because I'm actually in Beijing. The official news is very limited about the Taiwan election. And the official line of statement you perhaps have already heard is that, well, DPP's victory is not representing the population in Taiwan. And nevertheless, the result of the election will put serious test on the cross-strait relationships. I just follow the news before the break, and obviously this is the third term the DPP will rule the Taiwan, and the newly elected president will continue its Taiwan's position in semiconductor supply chains, and that will have a pivotal role in China and U.S. relations, especially in the high-tech supply chains.
All right. Now, Professor, let's just move on and talk about China's diplomatic efforts here. They have shifted to a more assertive wolf warrior diplomacy. And on Gaza, for instance, they've called for a larger-scale peace conference amid waning global faith in the ability of others to actually come up with a solution. So how advantageous is Beijing's lack of historical baggage compared to other players?
Well, China's diplomat position actually is largely influenced by its domestic issues. As we all know, China is facing quite severe domestic challenges at the moment. So in the past several years, we know China's diplomatic relationships have been ups and downs. And from the top party diplomat Liu Jianchao's visit to overseas countries, including Australia and the US in recent times, all suggest that Beijing is perhaps trying to play a more, more cooperative, large country, a great power role in the geopolitics, especially in areas where China's economic interests are very high. So Middle East, for example, and China is the largest importer of crude oil, for example. And recent studies suggest that Saudi Arabia and several other Middle East countries, they're actually actively moving towards green energy transition, where China holds a very strong leadership role. So China wants to maintain status quo and maintain regional stability because China will benefit continually from economic growth in that area. So China is doing this on one side is to fulfill its great power country role, And second is really to protect its economic interests in those areas.
So just how receptive are the Middle Eastern nations towards Beijing's efforts? And I guess could China potentially even replace the US as a leading external power?
Perhaps I'm not that optimistic. I mean, it's the U.S. role in the Middle East is still very strategic, and especially in terms of national security. And Beijing is as Liu Jianchao recently said, is not having any intention of rewrite a global order, but to be a more cooperative player in geopolitics, because Beijing is facing a lot of challenges diplomatically and domestically. So sort of Beijing is taking a more soft diplomatic position. I don't think in the near future Beijing will replace the U.S. in the Middle East. But Beijing obviously trying to build a better relationship with in the country, as I said, to maintain to call for peace in the area, and because the regional stability will benefit Beijing economically from several angles. So yeah, I'm not very optimistic of China's position.
Well, you've mentioned,
in that area.
Yeah, that China wanting to be a more cooperative player here. And with regards to the Ukraine war, for instance, a Ukrainian official did say that China needs to be more involved in talks just to end the war with Russia. We know that Moscow and Beijing, they are on friendly terms. How pivotal will China be in brokering peace in that conflict?
That is very a sensitive issue, even domestically, because even the population in China, my observation is sort of very split. One group of people, obviously, just I'm talking about the population, and they're very supportive of Russia's position, and of course, more educated. More westernized, population there obviously support Ukraine. But the government official position since almost 3 years ago has been maintaining a neutral position. So I don't think they have changed this position. And they deliberately try not to get involved. But on the other hand, we can see during the past 3 years, Russia has become one of China's major trading partner, and China has been actively exporting its products, EVs, to Russia, and all other vehicles on that matter. And I mean, China tries to maintain a neutral position because China also wants to keep the trading routes through Ukraine open and stable. So far, China has been benefiting from this position, and I don't think China, unless very necessary, will change the position quite soon.
Many thanks for your insights, Marina Zhang, an associate professor with the University of Technology, Sydney.